what does EQ really mean for a leader, both from a corporate structure point of view and the societal point of view, or an individual as well? So, what are your thoughts on that?
So from societal point of view, from the EQ will have impact in contribution towards society as well as contribution to the organization. In fact, it will have an impact on your own personality, and you will see a lot of impact in your own personal life. So
Mhm.
EQ will have impact in all in 360 degrees, your own personal life, your workplace, as well as your society.
Mhm.
And interestingly, one of the components of EQ, subcomponents, not components. I explained you 5 components about of EQ. One of the subcomponent of EQ is social responsibility, and social responsibility falls under interpersonal domain. So interpersonal contains 3 different aspects. One is interpersonal relationships, empathy, and social responsibility. And while we calculate your score on EQ, you will see that there would be an imbalance between any of the components. For example, one of the components can be emotional expression, right? And one of the components can be, let's say, assertiveness, right? Now let's say your assertiveness is lower than emotional expression, which
Mhm.
means your emotional expression is far more higher than assertiveness. Now that will create an imbalance. So what happens is that what does it mean is that you are able to express yourself in a much better way than asserting yourself. So as a leader, what will happen at workforce? That you are listening to everyone, you are understanding everyone's emotions, you are expressing them, that I understand what your difficulty is, right? But then at the end of the day, for a leader, what matters is the results, right? The organization needs PNL at the end of the day. That's the truth.
Mhm.
But you're
Mhm.
not able to get the results because you're not assertive enough. So how do you balance these components is what will it mean for a leader? So there are 15 subcomponents, and every component will have an imbalance with the other component. So there can be many imbalances. To choose which imbalance to work upon first is the task of a coach. A coach or a mentor will help you in choosing which imbalance to work upon first. One of the components can be social responsibility, which means how much do you give to community, right? Now your social responsibility is, let's say, much lesser than self-actualization. Self-actualization is one of the components. And what does self-actualization means? It means the ability to live a rich and fulfilling life now,
Mhm.
not in future, not 10 years later. I'll do this course five years from now, it's okay. Let me earn some money and then I'll do it. No. Self-actualization means the pursuit of meaningful, rich goals that can make my life rich and powerful now. Now your social responsibility is lower than self-actualization, right? Which means you have a lot of pursuit, you want to do a lot of things, but on reality, on ground floor, you're not doing anything for others. You're only thinking about what you want to do for your own self, but for community you have nothing to give.
Mhm.
So that's
Mhm.
an imbalance, right? So what will happen is, what will coach advise to such a person is that your self actualization can be balanced with social servicing. Why don't you do some service for others? In fact, it will aid your self actualization, and that imbalance can be reduced. So for a leader, there can be many imbalances which can be worked upon. For
Mhm.
community, there can be many imbalances that can be worked upon. In fact, as a human being, we always come back from work, we have a lot of stresses. The ability to have a higher stress tolerance is one of a major component of EQ. The stress management, the fifth component of EQ, has 3 things. One is flexibility, stress tolerance, and optimism, right? To have higher level of stress tolerance is going to definitely show up in your family relationships. You come back home and you're building up your stress tolerance is going to impact your relationships for the good, right?
Mhm.
So it is going to, the imbalances will work in all the ways. It will work with you as a leader, it will work in terms of giving back to society, it will also work with you as a individual human being.
Nishal, does empathy and emotion quotient have a relationship with each other?
So, Pulkit, in my opinion, empathy is the game changer when it comes to emotional intelligence. In fact, empathy is a little bit redundant right now. I would replace empathy with compassion. And not many people would know, if I ask anyone what is the difference between empathy and compassion. Are they the same? No, they are not the same. Empathy is all about understanding the other people's emotions, to be able to put my foot into their shoe and understand the pain, right? But the fact of the matter is that in today's world where we are living, we say we are in e-VUCA. It used to be VUCA before, now it's exponential to the power VUCA, right? In that world, just understanding others' emotion doesn't work. The difference between empathy and compassion is compassion means to suffer together. Now you have put your foot in someone else's shoe, but you say, oh no, I have understood what's your pain point, let me take off your shoe. No, compassion says, no, keep wearing that shoe, suffer with him. Unless you suffer with him, you will not understand what needs to be done on ground. And only because you suffer together can you take action. And therefore, when empathy combined with action is equal to compassion, right? So compassion has to be there, and that's the deciding factor between a leader who is a level 5 leader and a level 4 leader. And in fact, empathy comes under that interpersonal domain. It is the single most deciding factor which I believe a lot of leaders have to work upon. They only stop at understanding people, understanding emotions, do not go a step further in taking the action that is needed.
But at the same time, when you're being compassionate or you're being authentic when we're discussing about authenticity a bit back, one aspect that comes into picture or play is vulnerability for the people out there. Now, how can they, really be vulnerable, be authentic, but at the same time, not live in a fear of being cheated or being, taken advantage of while they are being authentic?
Hmm. The most important thing that comes in our mind is that if we are so compassionate, people will make use of us. People will think, oh, this person to understands me so well, I can just give him some excuse and. But emotional intelligence is far more intelligent than that. It doesn't only talks about empathy. In fact, there can be an imbalance between empathy and problem solving. There can be an imbalance between empathy and reality testing. And there can be an imbalance between empathy and impulse control.
Okay.
Right? So the component which is a decision making component makes a difference. When you move from being perceptive to being able to express well, and then to interpersonal, the next component is decision making component, and that includes 3 subcomponents: problem solving, reality testing, and impulse control. Now, being compassionate is to ensure that you are taking care of people around you, that you are giving back to society, and that you are that authentic human being that you want to be. To be has been taken care of till the interpersonal domain, right? Till you have your self-perception, self-expression, and interpersonal. But then, do you really think that only just by covering these 3 I can live my life? I need to build purpose with profitability. A purpose without being profitable doesn't work, right? But the problem that happens is that if the purpose or the shareholder value becomes the core purpose, we contaminate the whole process. The shareholder value is an end result of many things that we do, right?
Yep.
Right? If we make the shareholder value as the only purpose, then we contaminate the whole process, right? So being in the process, making sure that we are on the right process and following that process authentically will only make you a better human being. And one of the important components is a decision making component. Now I am being very compassionate, I am being very empathetic, but it is taking me away from reality. That imbalance needs to be worked upon. And how will we work upon reality testing? I will work upon reality testing by surrounding myself with people who can tell me the real time feedback and tell me that you were being compassionate, but you are compromising with your results. Yes, I understand that person needs a 2-week off, right? And you have given him a 2-week off, that is fine. But then you need support. Have you asked for that support with your senior management team? That I have decided that I want to give this person a leave for 2 weeks because he is going through some emotional turmoil. I am being compassionate, which is the right thing to do. But then, will you allow your work suffer for that? No. You will actually use your leadership skills. You will be resourceful to find a solution that your productivity doesn't go down. And therefore, your reality testing has to be in place. If your reality testing is in place, if your problem solving skills are in place, you will not be vulnerable. So emotional intelligence takes care of the vulnerability part without making you compromise, taking care of your compassion and empathy skills, and while making sure that you are being as authentic as possible. You can't be authentic on the second day itself. As I said, authenticity is all about your being your future self, right? You will be on the right path, you will be on the right process to be as authentic as possible. And it will work in a 360-degree circle. It will make sure that your reality testing skills are taken care of.
This sort of brings me to my next point, which I personally experienced as running an organization.
Hmm.
Often, a lot of these positive adjectives or traits that we talk about
Hmm.
are expected to be borne by the leaders or
Hmm.
the senior management people out there.
Hmm.
Whereas often the employees or the team members are given a leeway around things. But an organization is a two-way street. It can't be a one way that only the leaders are being compassionate, the leaders are being empathetic towards their employees. And I'm
Hmm.
talking a very generic point of view. There are exceptions to this where certain employees or team members contribute more than the leaders, and then they are promoted or evolve to being the future leaders of that organization.
Hmm.
But in a very general and larger point of view of running an organization, what are your thoughts around how can this culture of being empathetic, or compassionate, or being authentic, be made a two-way street rather than just being one way? Because this is one question that I often ask whenever corporate wellness comes into discussion with our experts. And I know there is no one clear answer to this, but
Hmm.
what are your thoughts around this, where even employees start to understand the need to be authentic, and the need, or not even the need, I would say, but it has to be an inherent quality coming or trait coming in within the team members as well.
So Pulkit, I completely believe in experiential. I completely believe in learning with experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reason we say that leaders should demonstrate emotional intelligence much more than the team members is because most of the team members that we are talking about here are people working in certain domains, right? And they are working with certain expertise. Someone is working in supply chain, someone is working in logistics, someone is working in sourcing, someone is working in designing, right? Whatever,
Mm-hmm.
social media, they are working in very specific domains, right? And when you are working in specific domains, you are in a stage where you are actually trying to survive. That's a fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the only way they can experience emotional intelligence is by looking up to someone who is demonstrating all these skills. Right? I can talk about a lot of things. I can talk about what Gita says. I can talk about what Yoga Sutra says. I can talk about what Daniel Goleman has said, what Sigmund Freud said. But what will it matter? Do we really think that it matters and it matter anything to them?
Mm-hmm.
When they are on a path to survival, when they know that okay, next 3 years of time I need to accumulate this much amount of money to be able to secure myself, it doesn't matter to them. But what one thing which I have experienced and what I can guarantee to everyone who is listening here is that if you demonstrate these skills and if these are working well for you, they will unconsciously adopt the skills. You don't need to make them learn anything.
Mm-hmm.
If you are demonstrating compassion, if you are demonstrating interpersonal relationships, if you come to office every day and take out 15 minutes just going around that office and speaking to everyone, asking them how are you, remembering their names,
Mm-hmm.
remembering what they do, asking them the challenges that they were facing and how it has been working for them, asking them for any support that they need from us. If they see you doing this day in and day out,
Mm-hmm.
they will also become that, because they will know that this works for this person, this works for my leader, and this is the only way to live. Only by giving them an experience of our own selves, only by telling them that living through this EQ is possible and I am living through it. And being vulnerable in front of them is also very important. Sharing with them that, I'm struggling through this phase of my life where I'm not able to handle my stress. Being vulnerable in front of them will make a lot of difference, because one of the components of stress tolerance is to be vulnerable, to express that I am not able to handle stress right now. Even your juniors will come up and help you, and their ability to come up and help you demonstrates their own EQ.
Mm-hmm.
They do not know their EQ is increasing, but just working with someone who demonstrates high level of EQ is good enough for them to develop their EQ. And once they reach that level, they will have that curiosity, that wisdom to actually pursue it further. My answer is that I believe in giving them experiences rather than giving them wisdom.
Hmm.
Otherwise it will be a spray and pray approach. You spray wisdom and then I pray that they acquire. So I believe in giving them experiences, and I believe that they see someone going through that journey and learn from that.
What would be, some of the tools that you would suggest for people to really start managing their emotions better or be more self-aware about their emotions? So what are some of the tools that, they can go back and work with?
I think the simplest tool which I started with was journaling. I think that's the most easiest, and it doesn't need any resources, it just needs a diary and a pen, right? You just need to start. I call it as journaling without purpose. We should start journaling without even thinking about anything. Get up, take a diary with you at your workplace, put it permanently in your bag, and whenever you feel heavy, you feel a lot of emotions being triggered within you, just write down what you're feeling. Do not even think if it is making any meaning to you
Mhm,
or if
mhm,
it makes any sense. Do it with lot of nonsense. Just write and write and write. And
mhm,
once you write, you will actually know what you're going through. Your mind knows before you know it. It can be a sense of insecurity, it can be a fear of your finances, it can be a relationship that is bothering you, it can be the stress at work that is bothering you, it can be your own self esteem, your own self regard which is low, which you
mhm,
are not able to articulate, or which you are not able to explain that I am not feeling the worth of being myself. Or it
mhm,
can be your authenticity which you are not able to express. Just keep writing it. And I believe yoga talks about mandala. I think in 48 days is one mandala. If you keep writing it down for 48 days, you will see the whole life, whatever you want to be, what means to you, will come through in that diary. The
mhm.
easiest way to start with this is journaling. It will give you a lot of answers. And the other thing which again is a very non-resourceful way and easiest way, is to build a good company. In ancient India we call as satsang, but it means, sat means truth, sang means company. A truthful company will help you. If you can surround yourself with people who are really truthful to you, who are not giving you feedbacks just because they are your colleagues or your friends or your family, those, it's actually, if you think about it, to find such people is difficult. But everyone has certain friends or colleagues which they know that if I ask him this, he will actually give me a feedback on my face, and I will not mind it. We always have such people, right? To speak to such people every day is something which we can do consciously. To surround ourselves with that company is extremely important. I think I will always say two simple tips: journaling and a good company. And by good company, I mean a truthful company. A company which can actually make you face your fears, make you face the truth. That company is not something which you will resist. You will not resist their feedbacks. If that feedback comes from my boss, I will resist it. That feedback comes from my junior employee, I will say, he doesn't know anything,
Mhm,
he's
mhm.
only judging me. But if that feedback comes from that company, which I acknowledge to be the satsang, it will work.
Amazing, amazing. And you very rightly pointed out, Nishal, that finding that satsang or the truthful company is pretty difficult in today's time. We all have our own ulterior motives, where for any relationship that we are in, mostly it's out of an ulterior motive. At times, we ourselves might not, accept that, but somewhere in the back of our mind, we know we are connected with this person because of this. And at times, I believe people who are really empathetic or authentic in their own self, if they stop making the efforts, they would suddenly find that their whole network or the whole list of people whom they call friends will suddenly start diminishing to at max one or two people in their lives.